I'm excited. We're about halfway done with the class, and we're moving right along. So this week we're going to cover Chapter 7 and 8. So Chapter 7 has to deal with the human nature and organizational behavior. How to protect against human beings. We talked a little bit, excuse me, a little bit in the past about social engineering and what the issue is with humans. They want to be friendly, they want to talk. So trying to control what they're doing becomes our problem. And it's called social engineering. That is probably still one of the biggest number one issues that we have. We can put in all the passwords, we could put in all the security we want, but social engineering, there's a human involved. If you look at Snowden, what did he do? He had access to certain files, and we had systems in place. He circumvented them because he had the ability to. He felt it was his duty. This whole issue on that. But sometimes it's just people don't understand what's going on. And it becomes our responsibility to ensure that we train the people on what they need to do. We have to understand that social engineering is a big impact on what we can do. So we have to make sure we have pre-employment background checks. Where did they work? Do they have any issues going on? So this is part of what we need to have implemented as a company. Now, this means that our HR department has to do some stuff. We also have to look at potential for disgruntled employees. What happens if someone gets fired for a reason they don't feel is just? Well, they can do some damage. Hence why a lot of people, depending on if they are fired, are walked out right away. They have zero access to their system. It's cut off. And sometimes, I remember I worked at one company, if you couldn't log into your system, you went to tell your manager, and he told you then you were fired. So there's all different ways and policies to handle this. It's never the best way, but you've got to protect the system. And sometimes, it might sound cold or cruel, but if you have a disgruntled employee that's going to do damage, sometimes it's costly. So you've got to understand that we got to look out for the benefit of the company. So we're going to look at that. What type of policies are in place? What are we going to do? One of the things we're going to talk about is ensuring we have job rotation. You don't want the same people doing the same job over and over again. That can lead to fraud or something undetected. By having a job rotation, it allows someone else to take a look at the books, to look at what's going on, to ensure that nothing funky is going on. Also, sometimes it might be required for some positions to take a vacation for the same thing. If someone never takes a vacation, they can be doing something with the books. No one would ever know because they're the only one who sees it. By forcing vacation time on certain individuals within the organization, it allows someone else to look at the books to ensure that the system is still up and running. So these are just some of the things that as a corporation we need to make sure that we follow, that they are important. Especially in the accounting or data area, you have to have two people look at everything. Two signatures are required no matter what happens. So this is some of the things we need to do. But a lot of things we need to look at is training the employees. Do they understand how sensitive data is? Do they understand that if someone asks you for your password, it might not be the best thing to give it to them, even if they say they're from IT? So what are the policies in place? We got to make sure that they are. Here's the bottom line. We got to protect the system, but the people have to do their job. So it is that fine line. How much security do we give out? How much information do we give out? And how much do we allow the employees to have? We got to also look at the ethics. How are we going to enforce our policies? What systems are in place to make sure that the policies get enforced? So that was Chapter 7 that we looked at. So we're going to have a discussion question on that. Chapter 8, we're looking at access control for information systems. And this is about how the servers and network store sensitive information. So we're going to look at how built-in controls, various information, and how all this comes together. So we have a couple things we're going to look at. Access data control for data. Data is the key to every organization. I just heard not too long ago someone who's doing a TED Talk. As you know, they're available for us to look at. I have a few of them online. But they were saying data, if you want to compare it, is equivalent to the gold rush in San Francisco or the oil boom that we had, because there's so much money to be made on data, hence why there's so many hackers going on. You know, we can look at all the data breaches, Equifax, Facebook, which got recently hacked again. Why do the hackers want it? They can sell it for money, and a lot of money. If you have a good credit score, they get your social security number, your credit, you're worth a lot of money to thieves. And this is why we have to make sure that we protect what we have. So there's different types of data. We have data at rest, which is basically means stored data. It's on our database. We might not access it all that much. A customer might have come in a week ago, a month ago, but it's not active data. It's just sitting there on a database somewhere. Looking for some examples. And so someone would love to have this because it's not accessed. So we really don't monitor it that much. So this is something that we can look. We also have data in motion. This is data that's being sent through the internet, whether it's through emails, whether it's through online signing ins. But securing data in motion is a lot more difficult. The database is stored, it's offline, it's online, but it's not being accessed. Data in motion is being sent. So if someone's on our website buying something, they're going to fill out that application page. They're going to send us that information. Well, through that internet, what are we doing to secure it, to make sure that it's not being hacked? So we need to make sure that we look at that. So we're going to study that a little bit. We're going to look at our file system. Who has access to a file system? Do we have inherent rights? Do we not have that? Who can see it? When can they see it? Because we can lock down data pretty good on most systems nowadays. Windows, Unix, we can have time frames that users can get into it only during their work hours, and we won't have access to it throughout their work hours, off hours. We can have different levels of control, whether it's full, whether it's modified, whether it's only read-only. So there's different levels that we can set depending on how important that data is. Who can see it? So we don't want someone who, a data entry person, going back and looking at data and making changes to it. So there's a lot of different things we have on this. So we're going to take a look at that, how we grant permissions on the Windows system. It's a little different than Unix. Windows, it's a lot of point and click. So go into the user's property, go into a folder's property and say, this is who has access to it. Usually we set it up by group, so you don't have to have individuals. So if we're going to have an accounting team, there can be 10 people in accounting. Everyone in that group has access to it. If someone leaves, we simply take them out of that group. They loses their access. We don't want to give individual rights to folders and files, but usually we assign groups in case that person leaves. We don't have to worry about it. So we usually give them groups to do that, and that makes it real easy in the Windows environment to set access capabilities. Pretty much can uncheck who has access. Usually administrators will have complete access. Users, you have everyone, and everyone might just be a view only for certain folders. So someone in the accounts receivable will have full rights to change accounts receivable files, but someone in accounts payable might need to see it but make no changes. So you can set different rights. You have an accounts receivable group, accounts payable group, and it just allows you to set different areas. So Windows is pretty straightforward to set up. Unix requires is a little bit different, but allows us to have the basically there's 3 modes: read, write, or execute, and it's done at the command level, like most Unix commands are. And it's a chow mode, change modifications. So 777 gives you full rights, and then anything after that 000 gives you 0 rights, and everything in between that has a different right pattern for how much protection each person has. So there's 3 different levels within each one. So you can have a excuse me. Yeah, so there's 3 different sets of applications that they can have access to, and so we're going to look into that a little bit. And again, that could be on a file level, a directory level, so we can change who that is. That just requires a little bit more setting up and working with the data. So this week, let's take a look at what we have due. So if we go back to, we're in week 4. If we take a look at week 4, we're going to have at the top of week 4 our reading assignments 7 and 8. We're going to have 2 weekly discussion questions, a weekly paper, your chapter quiz, and your journal entry. Under the lecture notes, you'll see we have the wrap up for week 3. We have our PowerPoints up there for you to look at. And then I have 2 interesting TED Talks, putting the human back into human resources, and the future of your personal data. I definitely recommend you watch these 2 videos, and if you want to comment on them, that will count towards one of your responses to your classmates. Remember, so if we look at the discussion questions in our assignment folder, so first is how you're going to write a paper on human access, 2 to 3 pages. Please remember you follow APA format. Just download it. And then we have 2 discussion questions we're going to look at. You're going to have a quick quiz, and then what you learned, your review. Your journal. So just take a look at those. Question from chapter 7, questions from chapter 8. And please remember, you have to respond to the initial question, and then 2 responses to other individuals. So please remember to do that. Do you have any questions? Always you can contact me via email. I check my emails daily, so please reach out to me. You can also post the questions up there. And then there's also the area what made you smile. So just enlighten us. Keeps us fun. Go out, have a good day, and remember to smile.